Welcome back, everybody. We are talking, well, we're sharing some of our team member stories today, and we're focusing on two of our team members who are started as traditional students, wound up as non-traditional students. And we just heard from Michelle Clifton, who shared her story kind of about the twists and turns she took to get to her final degree. And I'm excited to welcome Michelle Richardson. Coincidentally, they have the same name. If you've named your child Michelle, it's possible they will take a more circuitous path, but maybe not. And Michelle's going to share. Michelle is a former bursar at the Mayo Clinic College of Medicine, and also worked as a VP at Sallie Mae and an assistant VP at Chase Student Loans. So she has a whole wealth of knowledge around the whole question of how you pay for college, and she's going to tell us her story. So Michelle, tell me a little bit about that initial journey, right? I know you started college right out of high school, and what happened?
Sure, sure. Well, I guess you could say I fell in love. I
Happens.
went to college for 2 years, and I came from a small town in Iowa, and I was set on going into retail merchandising and management because I loved clothes and fashion, and I was in a great program, but life took a different turn, and I ended up going back to Iowa and getting married, and we had our son and daughter shortly thereafter. And so I was a mom and working, trying to make ends meet,
Right?
and, didn't finish my degree.
Right. Well, it's tough when you have two little ones at home, right? To go back to living on campus and going to class.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And I think there's a lot more resources out there today for families if that is the scenario, but it just didn't work for me at that time to go back. So I was working actually at a local community bank, and I was working with families and helping them complete the FAFSA,
Mhm.
and was working as a loan secretary. And I saw an ad in the paper for Buena Vista University, and they were offering night classes and had a degree in banking and finance. And I loved banking. I loved the bank I worked at, and like the finance world. Retail is tough when you have families and doesn't pay a lot, and you're always working holidays and weekends,
Yes.
and not, very helpful with young families. So I decided to go back to school. They accepted my credits from my first 2 years. So basically, I had 2 years left. I worked full time the entire time and went to class Monday and Thursday nights every week.
Got it. So how, um, what is interesting to me, it's similar to Michelle Clifton's story, is just that it's the job you got to help pay the bills, and help to raise your family that ended up putting you on a completely different path in terms of your career. So I think that's intriguing, right? One of the challenges with traditional students is oftentimes you go to college, you don't really know what you want to do or you think you do. Can you imagine you spend all that money to get your degree in retail, and then you discover, wow, this does not work with my family life. You still would have had a degree, but the one that you ended up getting ends up being much more useful to you, right, in your
Oh,
long-term career.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. It definitely was one of the best decisions, I've ever made to go back. I knew in order to ever be promoted or to do more,
Hmm.
I always was career focused, and so that was just a goal for me. I quite honestly felt a little bit like a failure because I didn't have my degree,
Hmm.
and I aspired and wanted to do that. And it was a very, very happy day. My family was there in graduation, and it was great. And I would not be where I'm at without it.
Right. So in all of this, obviously this costs money. I know you were working full time, but was that enough? Because you were working full time to support your family. So where'd you find the money to also pay for school?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when I finished my bachelor's degree, um, we honestly, as a family of four, were not making a lot of money.
Hmm.
We lived in the state of Iowa, and the school I attended was a private college. So they had an Iowa tuition grant, which was $4,000 a year. And at that time, that was a lot of money.
Hmm.
We also, I qualified for the federal Pell Grant also.
Hmm.
And then I did take out a small, it was the Stafford Loan Program at that time, but it was subsidized. And quite honestly, ended up leaving school with about $10,000 in student loan debt, which was a great return on my investment, many times over. And I
Got
was
it.
very fortunate to have the grant funds to help. I quite honestly don't think I would have been able to go without those resources.
Got it. So yeah, $10,000 in debt. Obviously, the ideal is no debt, but
Mhm.
$10,000 feels not crushing and doable in the long term to pay off,
Absolutely.
right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
So then, but ultimately for you, it turned out that getting that bachelor's wasn't enough. You
Right.
wanted to do something more, and so you decided to pursue your MBA. Tell us about that choice and paying for that.
Sure, sure. So when I was working at the Mayo Clinic, College of Medicine in Rochester, Minnesota, obviously, you're working around doctors and individuals who have advanced degrees.
Yes.
And again, I had such a great experience with my undergrad program. I'm like, I'm going to look for an MBA program, and again, in order to be promoted and to do more within my career. And there was a Cardinal Stritch University had a program in Rochester for a lot of Mayo employees. It was one night a week. It was always on a Monday, and it was a 2.5 year program. And it sounds like a long time, but quite honestly, it went by fast. At times, it didn't seem that way, but and in paying for that, that was a little bit different because it was a grad program. So there aren't any grants available for that.
Hmm.
So I did end up taking out a small Stafford loan, or, federal loan program for that. And ended up, and also Mayo had tuition reimbursement, which, definitely helped out as well. So I ended up with about 15,000 for in federal student loan debt for my MBA,
Got
which
it.
again, it was a great return on investment.
Right, because do you think, I'm not entirely positive of the chronology here. Did you go from the Mayo Clinic School of Medicine to Chase Student Loans to Sally Mae, right? So do you get those roles without your MBA?
Right, exactly. Great question. So when I was at Mayo, and at that time when I was at Mayo, I was working as the assistant director of student financial aid. So, and then I moved from there to Sally Mae, where I was promoted to VP. And then from there, I went to Chase and was assistant vice president. And I don't feel I probably would have had those roles had I not gotten my MBA.
Got it.
And I was the first one in my family to get an advanced degree, and my dad always said, "An education is something you can never take away from anyone." So I was very fortunate. I had a lot of support to help with the kids, and
Hmm.
obviously they sacrificed because I was, writing papers on the weekends, and we didn't get to do, all that fun stuff all the time, but.
Right,
Um, they, I think, got to see the value of an education.
right.
And, they're both college graduates now, which, I'm very proud of. And my daughter's considering a grad degree at the, current time, but, it was well worth the investment and the time.
Well, and they get to see the value of education. They also got to see how hard you worked to get it. And I think that probably makes it shows how really valuable it, right? So it's valuable, but look how valuable it is. I'm going to forgo, you guys are out having fun and I'm going to stay in and work. And that says something important, I think, to your kids.
Right. And I think it motivated them to get done right out of high school.
Yes,
But
exactly. Exactly.
but
They're
they
like,
definitely reap the benefits, of me going back to school for both my bachelor's and the MBA.
yeah. And so looking back, would you do anything differently about how you paid for it all? It sounds like you made smart choices, but maybe you're feeling like, "Ooh, I missed an opportunity along the way."
I think, for my undergrad, I think I skimped as much as I really could.
Mhm.
For my grad program, um, I probably could have maybe not borrowed quite as much. Not that 15,000 is a lot for a master's degree, but it's never fun paying back student loans, regardless of where you're at in life.
Mhm.
So it's always more fun to have a car payment, right? Because
Right, because you're
you
driving the car.
yeah,
The
exactly.
education payment, you're like, either you're writing papers, and so,
Right.
it's a double whammy, or you have the degree, but that's not something you've got bright and shiny that you're really showing everyone all the time, right?
Right,
Yeah,
right.
that's
And I
funny.
think, because we had tuition reimbursement, you pay for that up front and then you get the money. I think it can be too easy sometimes to take that money and
Yes,
not put it towards the student loan.
right.
And I'm guilty of that. I probably could have done that, a little bit more than what I did, but we all make choices and learned from them. But
Yep. Well, with that in mind, what advice would you give to people who are listening and who are either thinking about returning to school as adults, or maybe they have students who aren't really ready to go off to college and maybe they want to work? And so your thoughts and advice on how to pay for all of it and things that you would suggest they do.
Sure. For the adults that, maybe are not happy where they're at, or maybe with their initial degree choice, and they're thinking about going back, I definitely would encourage them to pursue it. Check with your employer. A lot of employers today have tuition reimbursement or maybe student loan repayment programs. Um, as an adult with children, you may qualify for grants like I did that you wouldn't know
Mhm.
are available, and there are also scholarships out there. I never pursued that just because, quite honestly, I didn't have the time.
Right.
But that is something also to consider. And if you do decide to go back to school, give yourself a break and set small goals. I One thing I did to keep somewhat sane is every Friday night was a night where I didn't cook and I didn't work and I didn't do homework. And
Mm.
so, you kind of look forward to that, one night. But it definitely is worth pursuing. There's a lot of resources out there. And for those parents that maybe have those students that don't know yet what they want to do, I think that's okay. I've seen so many friends and families, and just in working with families, over the 20 plus years in paying for college and financial aid and being the bursar, that they all maybe think early on what they want to do. And then, I would highly recommend working in that field while they're in college.
Mhm.
Um, like I did, because once I was working in retail, it was great when I was a college student.
Mhm.
I had access to great clothes and, it was a fun job, but not so fun when you're married and trying to raise a family and, you have to look the part and you're not making a lot.
Right.
And you're realizing, ooh, these hours are not the way I want to spend the rest of my life.
Right. Right.
So, I think it's okay for young adults to not know exactly where they want to go, and, to be patient, work on their general education courses early on. And if they think they, want, have a career path, do an internship or job shadow and try to, see some of those opportunities in the field.
Yeah, absolutely. Michelle, great advice. And thank you so much for sharing your personal story with all of us. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. It was certainly my pleasure. Good to see you, Beth.
You too. All right, we're going to take a very quick break. And when we come back, we are talking about New Year's resolutions. So don't go away.